Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Learning Bits. In the previous video we have learned the influence of heredity and environment. Now in this video we shall learn some important points of Piaget's theory of cognitive development, which comes under child development and pedagogy. Before going into the topic, those who are watching my video and those who are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel Learning Bits. Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Piaget's theory of cognitive development explains how a child constructs a mental model of the world. Jean Piaget, a Swiss biologist and epistemologist, he developed cognitive psychology in 1920. Epistemology is a branch of philosophy which is concerned with the nature of knowledge. He disagreed with the idea that intelligence was a fixed trait. He regarded cognitive development as a process which occurs due to biological maturation and interaction with the environment. Piaget was employed at the Binet Institute in 1920, where his job to develop French versions of questions on English intelligence test. Piaget was the first psychologist to make a systematic study of cognitive development. What Piaget wanted to do was not to measure how well children could count, spell, or solve the problems as a way of grading their IQ. He was more interested in idea of number, time, quantity, causality, and justice. Before Piaget's work, the common assumption in psychology was that children are merely less competent thinkers than adults. According to Piaget, children were born with a very basic mental structure that is genetically inherited and evolved, on which all subsequent learning and knowledge are based. Piaget theory differs from others in several ways. It is concerned with children rather than all learners. It focuses on development, not on learning. It proposes the stages of development by qualitative differences rather than a gradual increase in number and complexity of behaviors, concepts, ideas, etc. The goal of the theory is to explain the mechanisms and process by which the infant and then the child develops into an individual and think using hypotheses. To Piaget, cognitive development was a progressive reorganization of mental process based on biological maturation and environmental experience. Children construct an understanding of the world around them, then experience differences between what they already know and what they discover in their environment. There are three basic components to Piaget's cognitive theory. First one is schemas, next adaptation process, and next stages of cognitive development. So here schemas are also known as building blocks of knowledge. Adaptation process that enable the transition from one stage to another. So in the adaptation process there are another three aspects, that is equilibrium, assimilation, and accommodation. And in the stages, so Piaget divided four stages, that is sensory motor, pre-operational, and concrete operational, and formal operational. A newly born human body possesses a few practical instincts and reflexes such as sucking, looking, reaching, and grasping. These cognitive abilities Piaget named as schemas. Schemas enable us to form a mental representation of the world. So it is also known as pre-existing knowledge. Piaget defined a schema as a cohesive, repeatable action sequence possessing component actions that are tightly interconnected and governed by a core meaning. In simple terms, Piaget called the schema the basic building block of intelligent behavior, a way of organizing knowledge. Indeed, it is useful to think of schemas as units of knowledge, each relating to one aspect of the world, including objects and abstract concepts. Wordsworth suggests that schemata, the plural form of schema, be thought of as index cards filled in the brain, each telling an individual how to react incoming stimuli or information. A schema can be defined as a set to respond linked mental representations of the world, which we use both to understand and to respond to situations. The assumption is that we store these mental representations and then we use when needed. For example, a person might have a schema about buying a meal in a restaurant. Here, schema is stored information in the pattern of behavior, which includes looking at a menu, ordering food, eating it, and paying the bill. This is an example of a type of schema called a script. Whenever they are in a restaurant, they use this schema from memory and apply it to the situation. Babies have innate reflexes. It means when babies feel something touching to their lips, start sucking. Therefore, baby has a sucking schema. When child gets older, schemas become numerous. For example, grasping, shaking, and touching. Cognitive development and intellectual growth occurs when an individual interact and adapt to the environment. This adaptation process can be carried out through the process of assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation. Assimilation means incorporating new ideas or new things to the existing past experiences. For example, a 2-year-old child sees a man who is bald on the top of his head and long frizzy hair on the sides. To his father, the toddler shouts, "Clown, clown." Here, clown means a person who works in circus makes us to laugh. Accommodation. In this process, one has to learn new ways of thinking and behaving by making changes or modification. For example, in the clown incident, the boy's father explained to his son that the man was not a clown and that even though his hair was like a clown's, he was not wearing a funny costume and was not doing silly things to make people laugh. With this new knowledge, the boy was able to change his schema of clown and make this idea fit better to a standard concept of clown. Equilibrium, which means the process of assimilators or accommodation helps the organism to adjust or maintain a better harmonious relationships between himself and his environment. In brief, equilibrium means the adjustment mechanism. Next, we shall learn stages of intellectual development. Piaget suggested 4 developmental stages. First one, sensory motor stage. Next, pre-operational stage. Third one, concrete operational stage. Next one, formal operational stage. First one, sensory motor stage, that is from birth to 2 years. This is first stage of mental development, that is intellectual development, and here absence of language occurs. Senses are said to be the gateway of knowledge, develops relationship between sense and motor actions. Piaget calls this is an action schema. Infant exhibits a limited number of uncoordinated reflexes such as sucking, looking, reaching, and grasping. This all happens in 1 to 3 months. Next 4 months, all unconstructed reflexes are coordinated into simple schemas. For example, the child reaches for everything and grasps all which is kept in his hands. By the age of 8 months, the infant is able to react to objects outside himself. The child slowly begins to realize that the objects around him are separate from himself and can understand that they have their independent and permanent existence. The child can understand the concept of object permanence. Next stage is pre-operational stage, that is from 2 to 7 years. Learning of the language acts as a good tool for thinking and he begins to use words for asking the required instead of reaching out to get it. It is further divided into 2 stages, that is pre-conceptual phase, that is starts from 2 to 4 years, and next one intuitive stage, that is 4 to 7 years. First one, pre-conceptual stage, that is 2 to 4 years. At the beginning, children can identify objects by their names and put them into certain classes, and at the same time they do mistakes in the process of identification and concept formation. For example, children thinks that all men are daddy and women are mummy. The mode of thinking and reasoning of children in this stage is quite illogical and constructive in nature. The way of thinking of children is too imaginative, far away from reality. They are unable to distinguish between living and non-living objects. The child in this stage is egocentric in nature, which means child can see the world only from his own point. He cannot think that the people may have different opinions and he himself as the center of the world of people. In this stage, the child thinks and considers that the sun and the moon are following him whenever he goes, and rain falls to delight him, and all the matter which exists in the external environment is especially meant for him. Next one, intuitive phase, that is from 4 years to 7 years. At this stage, child can form various concepts at more advanced level. For example, able to recognize all fruits by intuitively. Here intuitively means ability to understand or know something without any direct evidence. The way of thinking is full of contradictions. Contradictions means opposing one another. The two main cognitive characteristics that possessed by child in this stage are reversibility, which means ability to reverse, and conservation, which means ability to see an object as permanent even though its length, width or shape changes. For example, when we put a question to a child which has more weight after observing equal weight of iron and cotton, the child replies immediately cotton, by which the child sees only the quantity. Next stage, it is concrete operational stage, that is from 7 to 11 years. The child is no longer rigid and irreversible and no longer egocentric in his thinking. The child will give respect for others which are different from his own. Here the child can use inductive and deductive methods in his way of thinking and develops ability to conserve both in terms of quantity and number of objects. Inductive deductive, we can also call it as a general to specific or else easy to tough. The child realizes the importance of cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers. So example for cardinal numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, ordinal numbers first, second and third. Next stage, it is formal operational stage, that is from 12 to 15 years. At this stage, the intellectual development and functioning takes a very developed shape, and child can deal with abstraction by logical thinking. So we can also call it for abstraction as a process of removing of uneven things. The child look at problems in many ways and explore various solutions for it. The child thinking at this stage becomes more hypothetical. The child shows interest in concrete thinking. Concrete thinking means thinking by focusing on physical world, what he can see, hear, smell, touch and taste. This period reflects the beginning of the advanced stage in the functioning of the child's cognitive system, and it provides a ladder to reach the limits of a person's intellectual development and actualize his potentiality to the maximum extent in the available circumstances. Thank you for watching this video. If this video is useful for you, please subscribe to my channel Learning Bits.